Dear students, today we will learn the scientific method and recording of animal behavior. This is very essential because animal behavior in the most cases cannot be studied in a confined laboratory. And when an animal or any human being or any subject, living subject understands that he or she or the animal is being observed, the actual result may differ. So this is a part we need to know how they are studied. So the two things mostly follow the continuous and instantaneous observations. But before that, we need to know why we need observation or what are the limitations of observation method. There are many advantages of observation method, and even observation has a role in concluding about a behavior. It actually records the actual behavior of the organisms. It may not rely on what people says about some behavior. So the observation through our records gives the actual behavior which can be visualized through some electronic form or directly. Then recorded behaviors can be compared to verbal statements or comments of the people, what they said earlier, and that can be validated. What they said or what things have been recorded are similar or different. But there are some limitations, and these limitations are also very important because you can see the observation techniques do not provide insights into what the person may be thinking, or it may not provide the actual cause of the behavior. In many a time, what the person is thinking may be different from the way he or she is behaving. The same thing happens to animals also. Many times the animal looks very quiet and calm, but actually that may be a technique of aggression. So this part is a limitation. The behavior which is exhibited may not have the exact outcome or may not have the exact message what the subject is thinking. Such information which the say for example I told you that what the subject is thinking, such information can only be obtained by asking people. That means through interview. In case of animals, it is difficult. But in case of human being, asking questions or asking them to put down their opinion in writing, that is the way to think about what they were thinking at the time of a particular behavior. But for animals, other animals, it is totally impossible. Another limitation is the ethical issues. There are ethical issues while observing the subject, male the human being. In case of human being, whether the observed subject, which is a human being, knows that he or she is being observed is a very important question, important issue for ethical concern. Technological advances like cameras and microphones facilitate observing verbal and non-verbal behavior that might be considered to be an invasion of privacy in case of human being. So it is very difficult to overcome this kind of issues when we deal with the observation with human behavior. And many times the whatever information gathered through observations may impact the subject. The decision taken on the basis of those observations may impact the subject. So this is also very difficult to handle in many times. So types of observation, if we say, you can say there are several types, but before that we have to know what is actually observations. It is a method of collecting data by human, mechanical, electrical or electronic means. When any subject, a subject may be an animal, a subject may be a human, when data is collected, any data collected by another human or any human being collecting data through mechanical, electrical or electronic means, that is known as observation. In this case, the researcher may or may not have direct contact or communication with the people whose behavior is being recorded. So it may be direct or indirect. Again, many times it is thought that observation is very subjective, or observation is indirect and it is just a descriptive topic. But nowadays the methods have come out which gives observation a quantitative research. The methods have come out to deal with observation method with some quantitative values. So it is qualitative as well as qualitative research. So as I said you that observation may have different ways of collecting data. You can see here there are 6 different ways we have listed. The first one is participant versus non-participant observation. So many times the subject may participate in that particular experiment, behavior experiment. Sometimes without knowing it is done, without informing the participant it is done, non-participant. Second is obtrusive versus unobtrusive observations. So it is the observations where the subject is observed very clearly. The subject knows and everyone knows that it is being observed and being experimented, and that is obtrusive. But unobtrusive is that it is not totally informed or totally unknown, unaware of anything that being observed. And third is that observation in natural versus contrived settings. You can understand observation under natural condition. Anywhere in natural open conditions it may be observed. Contrived means under an enclosure, in a setup, the observation is done. Then disgust versus non-disgust observations. So some observations method may not be welcome by the participant. So in that case, some observations, although not very comfortable, not very welcome, it is performed on the subject. Non-disgust means those are which are not comfortable or pleasantful are not performed. Then fifth one is structured versus unstructured observation. So structures means a strategy is followed. This is the first step, then next step, third step, fourth step. So stepwise a particular observation experiment is progressed. Unstructured means there is no charge. It is just kind of a recording, observation and analysis. And sixth one is direct versus indirect observations. So we can understand many of the observations we have discussed here in the previous previous points may come under direct or indirect observations. Say for example, non-participant may come under indirect observations. In natural condition may also come under indirect observations. So this may happen that many of these 1, 2 or 3 or 4 these observations may come under direct versus indirect observations. In fact, in most of the cases you can divide observations principally into 2 parts, direct versus indirect observations. So when you talk about direct observations, you can talk about continuous monitoring and time allocation. The continuous monitoring means a subject is observed for longer duration continuously without any interruption. And when it is time allocation, a particular time period is allocated. Within that period, the subject is being observed. So direct observation has two different ways. One is continuous monitoring and second is time allocation. Further, you can see under continuous, it is observed as a focal subject and sequence. Focal subject means a particular subject is being focused, centered. The all observations, the continuous observation is observed on a particular subject or particular point. Say for example sleeping, how long the person sleeps from day 1 to day 7. But when you talk about sequence, you will understand the person throughout the period what he does. Sleeping 4 hours, sitting 2 hours, eating 2 hours, walking 1 hour, playing 2 hours. Like this, the sequentially the behavior is noted down. Then time allocation, here scan. Scan means within that particular time the behavior is scanned, what behavior is maintained. Same like a sequence, within a short period, morning 6 to 8, what the subject usually perform, or evening 6 to 8, what the subject usually perform. This is total overall is done under the scan. And instantaneous means for a particular time, 6 to 8 it is done, then 8 to 10 to 12 it is done, then 2 to 4 it is done. So at a different interval, how the behavior is repeated or how the behavior is performed, that is done under instantaneous observations. So here you are allocating some time, and under the time you are observing the subject with an interval, and here you are allocating a time, and under that particular period, within that particular period, you are observing the particular behavior, how it is being performed. So this is what the direct observations.